A long time ago, a friend of mine, Kaba, broke his left leg doing something stupid. It wasn't completely shattered, but he wasn't able to walk on it for quite a while. After some time, he got the go-ahead to drive from his doctor and got a temporary disabled parking permit for his car. At this point, he was using crutches. I went over to his place one day to hang out, read, play video games, and after a couple of hours, his wife called and asked how the shopping went. What shopping? Kaba asked. The dummy forgot that it was his turn to do the grocery shopping. Not really much of an excuse. He had done it once already when on crutches. So, naturally, we stop playing and hop in his car to drive to the grocery store. As we're pulling into the parking lot, he goes for the front. I assume to park in the handicap spot, but he sees a regular spot open just next to the disabled spot and resigns to simply park there instead. He says, "I'm not *THAT* disabled. A wheeler might need that spot." Hig. He's got this really weird high-pitched chuckle of a laugh. We get out of the car and all of a sudden this crazy lady in a car behind us starts honking and yelling, "Hey, you can't park there. There's a disabled spot right there," she screamed. Thinking she was confused, I said, "This is a normal parking spot. The disabled spot over there is free if you need it." Apparently, Crazy didn't like my assumption of her being disabled. *I**M* not disabled, you retard. *HE** is. Pointing to Kaba, "I can see the handicap placard in your car. You have to move to the handicap spot. There aren't any other spots nearby, and I have my kids with me, and they don't want to walk that far." Kaba looks slightly hurt by her words, but responds, "Ma'am, yes, I do have a handicap permit, but I don't *HAVETO* park in the handicap spot. I'm leaving it open in case someone with a greater disability arrives and needs to park, like someone in a wheelchair. That doesn't matter." She pouts. "If you have a placard, you *HAVE* to park there. It's the law." We were getting ready to just leave Crazy B when a cop car happened to enter the lot, fairly close to where we were. Crazy starts violently honking and flashing her lights to get the cop's attention, which she does as he flips on his lights and drives up to the area and gets out. "What the hell's going on here?" he demands. Crazy starts, "Officer, they're breaking the law. They're not parking in the handicap spot, but they have a handicap placard." The officer did the same thing I did. He assumed that she meant we were in the handicap spot without a placard. He turns to Kaba and says, "You have a handicap placard, son?" "Yes, sir, I do. But I'm not in a handicap spot. It's a normal parking spot." The officer looks at the spot and confirms that it is indeed a normal spot. He and Kaba quickly go over the events that transpired. The cop then goes to Crazy. "Ma'am, he doesn't have to park in the handicap spot just because he has a handicap placard. Now I suggest you take your kids and leave these boys alone and go on about your day," he says and stands there and waits for her to leave. She tries to say something, but the officer loudly says, "Have a nice day." Repeat 3 times. Crazy gets fed up and finally leaves, apparently without her groceries, since she left the whole lot. We both thank the officer, and he says, "Just don't mess that leg up again." I almost wish a wheelchair user would have come at one point to punctuate the matter, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. We got the shopping done and went home. We told the story to Kaba's wife when she got home and she said, "That's what you get for forgetting to do the grocery shopping." When I was younger, I lived across the street from a girl who went to the same school as me, but we were in different classes. We still played together along with a few more kids in the neighborhood. The girl lived with her grandpa and mom. Her mom was going to school and working, so she was hardly home, so her grandpa would be her main guardian. Her grandpa was a soldier who fought in Vietnam and had a few of his medals hung up in his old office. One thing her grandpa loved to do was bake, and whenever we played at the girl's house he would always have some baked good ready for us to snack on if we ever got hungry. So one we were playing, when this boy who neither of us have met, ran over to us and asked if we could play with him, and we said yes. We never thought to ask where he came from or where his parents were. So while we were playing, the girl's grandpa comes out with these giant blueberry muffins. Those were my most favorite, and we all got to have one and an extra to take home. So we sat on the back porch eating muffins with cups of milk while the grandpa was telling us jokes. Out of nowhere, this man comes over yelling the boy's name, and when he sees us, he starts to yell at the grandpa. Grandpa sends me and the girl inside and told the kid to go with his dad, but the dad wasn't gonna leave so easily. We were inside, so we didn't hear everything clearly, but we heard bits and pieces and words being thrown out like pedophile, murderer, and a few slurs that we didn't understand at the time. When the man finally left, we heard him yell that he was gonna call the police on grandpa. When grandpa finally came inside, he looked like he was trying not to cry, and when we asked if he was okay, he just said he was tired and went to lay down. This man fought in a war, lost his wife to a drunk driver, and ended his life 4 years later at the age of 73. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of his death. I remember all the good memories and how good of a man he was. He raised my friend since she could walk, just so her mom can get a degree to better their life. I will always miss him. Warning, needs some backstory of why I'm not happy. January. This will be a relatively long story, so get some popcorn and a drink, lads. So, this happened today, and I'm still partially in disbelief and frustrated. I'm tired of people telling me, well, you look fine, so Jim. My condition is called ulcerative colitis. It's similar to Crohn's disease, and recently it has been really badly flaring up to the point where I have to have a spare change of clothes, more than a gallon of water because of all the electrolytes I'm losing, and vomit bags because I sometimes vomit due to pain. Today I went by bus to see a friend, and we had a great day just watching movies, going to the movies the next day, and window shopping. During the activities, my stomach started to hurt, and I had to sit down and stop what I was doing immediately. My friend was worried, but understood that this was part of my condition, ulcerative colitis, and knew I couldn't speak, just deep breaths. Regardless of that though, we talked about all this stuff we missed with other. I stayed at her place for one night and cleaned up some of the dishes, since it was also my mess, but checked the time, got ready and bought some food on the go, so I didn't have to rush anything. While I was waiting at the bus stop, I saw a mother and her 2 kids. One boy and one girl. The girl was such a sweetheart, but that boy was already being bratty and whining about something every 2 seconds. The girl, who was younger BTW, was very patient than the boy. Once the bus arrived, I tried to move away from this Karen as far as I could. Thanks to this whole scenario, my stomach is aching really bad, and I closed my eyes while I put some music on until the pain was gone. This is where the story begins. K. Karen. CG. Crotch Goblin. SG. Sweet Girl. BD. Bus Driver. I was in my own world trying to concentrate on my pain when I feel a tap on my shoulder. I take out one of my earbuds and smile at this lady, even though she was frowning and scared me a little. She didn't look like a typical Karen with her outfit, but, ding ding ding, she had the hair. I could hear her tapping her foot in an annoyingly loud way. Karen, well. I looked confused. Well, what? Karen put a hand on her hip. I need this seat. My back is hurting, and I need another seat. I looked around and there were at least 3 other ones in the bus. I gave a confused look. There's plenty of other seat. Karen, but only that one has a bigger window. My son would also like to sit next to me in your spot. Of course, I was still in pain, but I was just shocked and couldn't concentrate on my stomach at all. Karen glared at me. Besides, these chairs are for people who have some sort of medical issue. I highly doubt a kid would have health problems. What about kids that get cancer? What about kids that have meningococcal? BTW. I'm 23 and most definitely not a kid. I have an awkward smile. I'm sorry miss, but I'm getting internal pain and I need to sit down. People who didn't even understand what was going on jeered at me, telling me I'm being disrespectful towards this poor lady who has 2 young kids and has a hard life. I was apparently in need of a good beat to show me how hard life can really be. I was shocked and disgusted into silence because I've never heard someone, let alone several people, speaking to me like that in my life. All over a seat. A seat. A seat. I was too panicked to move at this point, where people were trying to make me uncomfortable with their size and numbers. Karen smiled like a psychopath, because she thought that she'd be getting what she wanted. I looked down, just waiting for people to shove me away, but I heard BD clearly, yelling, "That's enough. The poor girl is dealing with serious pain and you're all bullying her because some psycho beach told her to get out. Shame on all of you for attacking an innocent and sick person who is clearly ill. I heard you all minimalizing her condition, and guess what I have? CROHS disease and fear very similar. Don't talk crap about things you have no idea about." The people who were yelling at me stopped, shuffled away and silently went back to their seats. Even Karen was taken aback and took her son to another spot quietly, at this point in crying from shock, relief and anxiety. When it was my turn to leave the bus, I gave him an extra 50 I had in my pocket, and even though he refused to take it, I told him it was my thanks and I'll be forever grateful, and that those of us who have gastro diseases should stick together jokingly. He said thank you when I handed the 50 and got out. I don't get to see him much since I moved, but I'll never forget how he stuck up for me when I couldn't even stand up for myself. It's things like this that make me appreciate life. That kind man didn't know me, but still stuck up for me because of how nasty people were being. As a bit of background, my aunt is only a few years older than I am. She married her husband several years ago, and they ended up having a kid together. I love my niece to pieces. She is the cutest and always melts my heart. That said, her parents leave much to be desired. For the past few years I have been dealing with a chronic illness that ended up with me having to have several surgeries. My aunt and her husband have always acknowledged my issues, but usually feigned indifference, always wanting to know why I didn't hang out with or see them more often, rather than how I was actually holding up. I just chalked it up to the fact that they didn't really quite understand what I was going through. This belief was destroyed when, several months ago, I was in a car crash and started experiencing intense migraines that happened without warning and seemingly without a cause. My migraines would usually hit around 1 PM and would last for the rest of the day. It reached the point where I was working part of the day at the office and finishing what I could at home. During this time, my family was updated with my progress and how I was doing. Eventually I had an MRI done, and it was found that I had 2 benign cysts on my brain that was causing all of my pain and issues. Because of this, I was rarely up past 9:30 PM as I just wanted to sleep my pain away and wake up feeling slightly normal. This is important. My aunt and her husband are fairly well off, to the point where he doesn't think of anyone else except himself and his own selfish desires, and will willing rub his wealth into others' faces. She grew up in a fairly poor household, so she absolutely loves having money and the security that comes with it. I don't blame her as I understand that feeling, but she allows it to take over. But no matter how much money they have, they are constantly looking for friends and family to provide free childcare so they can go out and drink with their friends. Here's where the entitled parent part comes in. While dealing with my medical problems that they were well aware of at this point, they texted me several times asking me to come over and watch their daughter while she slept so they could go out and party with friends at a local nightlife bar. She'll be sleeping. You won't have to worry about anything. Just come over and stay until we come home around midnight or so. It'll be really easy. I would gently remind them that I go to bed around 9:30, that midnight is way too late for me to be up, and that I have a hard enough time taking care of myself without my boyfriend helping out, let alone imagine being responsible for a 2-year-old. I ended up having surgery to drain one of the cysts last week, to which I sent my aunt a photo of me the day before, and she replied with, "You look really pretty for someone apparently having surgery tomorrow." I mean, what? And thought that this would finally be the end of the free babysitting questions. I mean, brain surgery, am I right? Who in their right mind would ask someone who just had brain surgery to watch their child while they're healing? You guessed it. 2 days after I had been discharged from the hospital, 5 days after surgery, I saw her husband. Granted, I was definitely hopped up on pain meds and looking really well for someone who just went through what I did, but that doesn't excuse any of his behavior. We were talking about how I was told by my doctor to keep active and moving to reduce the risk of blood clots, and he looks at me and we have the following conversation. Him, hey, you can go on walks with Aunt. I'm sure she would love that. Me, that's a great idea. I would love to spend more time with her. Him, you guys can even take the kid on walks with you. Me, even better. We can get some real bonding time in. Him, you know, you can even take the kid by yourself, so we can have a break and do things without her. Me, him, don't worry, she's a really smart 2-year-old. She knows the difference between pretend ouches and real ouches. It's perfect. Me, no. I ended up texting my aunt later that day to clarify that I would 1. Love to spend time with her walking, but it would be on my terms near my home where I could easily return and be comfortable if things started feeling too overwhelming, or if my pain was too much, and 2, I would under no circumstances be watching her child during my healing process. I don't care how smart she is, I can't run after her, I can't pick her up, I wouldn't even be able to drive her to the hospital if something happened. Not to mention that, if something happened to me while watching her, she wouldn't know what was happening, what to do, or know to call 911, and I'm not willing to risk traumatizing a child because her parents wanted to go out and have drink with friends. I don't care if there is a 99% chance that she'll be asleep the entire time I'm there. I'm not willing to risk the 1% chance that something does happen. And the fact that you're willing to take that risk says a lot about you as a parent. If you enjoyed the stories, slap the like and subscribe button for more of them, and don't forget to support the original writers with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.